Microsoft has poached 24 DeepMind staffers.
AI is a genuine concern.
We spent the last 2 decades worried about Google monopolizing search, Facebook controlling social media, Amazon dominating commerce. But while we were watching the obvious players, Microsoft quietly built something far more dangerous. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. And if you're a developer, a business owner, or frankly, anyone who uses technology, what Microsoft has built should terrify you. Because they don't just own one piece of the AI puzzle, they own the entire board. Today, we are going deep into Microsoft's artificial intelligence empire, how they leverage decades of strategic acquisitions and partnerships to position themselves as the gatekeeper of artificial intelligence, and why this monopoly might be the most dangerous one in tech history. Let's start with the most obvious piece, OpenAI. But this isn't the story you think you know. Everyone talks about Microsoft's $13 billion investment in OpenAI like it's just a partnership. It's not. It's a masterclass in strategic control without ownership. Here's how it works. Microsoft gets exclusive access to OpenAI's models for their commercial products. They get to integrate GPT into Bing, Edge, Office 365, and Azure. But here's the kicker. They also get the rights to all of OpenAI's intellectual property if the company ever fails to achieve artificial general intelligence. Think about that for a second. Microsoft funded OpenAI's research and development, gets first access to everything they build, and has a safety net that gives them permanent ownership if things go south. It's like lending someone money to build a house, getting to live in it while they pay the mortgage, and keeping the deed if they default. But the real genius is in the integration. GPT isn't just bolted onto Microsoft products, it's woven into the fabric of how millions of people work every day. When you use Copilot in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, you're not just using AI, you're deepening Microsoft's moat. And here's where it gets sinister. Every query, every document, every interaction becomes training data that makes Microsoft's AI ecosystem more powerful while locking users deeper into their platform. But OpenAI is just the tip of the iceberg. The real foundation of Microsoft's AI empire was built in 2018 when they acquired GitHub for $7.5 billion. At the time, most people thought it was about developer tools. They were wrong. Microsoft didn't buy GitHub for the platform, they bought it for the data. As of May 2025, GitHub now boasts 150 million users, hosting over 420 million repositories. To put that in perspective, that's the entire population of Brazil, all writing code under Microsoft's roof. That's virtually every significant piece of open source code written in the last decade. Every algorithm, every framework, every innovative solution that developers have shared with the world. And now Microsoft owns all of it. This is the training data goldmine that powers GitHub Copilot, which has already crossed 20 million users as of 2025. Think about that, 20 million developers now rely on Microsoft-powered AI to write code. That's not just adoption, that's cognitive dependency at scale. And here's the controversial part. Developers who uploaded their code to GitHub under open source licenses never consented to it being used to train commercial AI models. Microsoft is essentially monetizing the free labor of the entire developer community. But it gets worse. Every time a developer uses Copilot, they're creating more training data. Microsoft is watching how developers interact with AI-generated code, what they accept, what they reject, what they modify. They're not just using our past work to train their AI, they're using our current work to make it smarter. And soon, with tools like Cursor and other AI-powered IDEs, this won't be optional. If you want to stay competitive as a developer, you'll have to feed the Microsoft AI machine. Quick reminder while we're here, if this content is helpful to you, we're just 70 subscribers away from 500. Smash that subscribe button to join our growing community. Your support means everything. All right, let's continue. Now let's talk about the backbone that makes all of this possible, Azure. Microsoft's cloud platform isn't just competing with AWS and Google Cloud. It's become the foundation that most AI startups depend on. Azure now controls 20 to 23% of the global cloud market, making it the second largest after AWS at roughly 31%. But here's the kicker. Azure revenue hit $75 billion in fiscal year 2025, with a staggering 39% year-over-year growth. And AI was the biggest driver of that surge. Here's how the lock-in works. If you're building an AI startup, you need massive computing power for training models. Azure offers attractive pricing and credits for startups. You build your entire infrastructure on their platform. You integrate with their AI services because it's convenient and cheap. But once you're in the Azure ecosystem, leaving becomes nearly impossible. Your entire code base is optimized for their services. Your team is trained on their tools. Your data is stored in their format. And as you scale, the switching costs become astronomical. In Q1 2025 alone, Azure grew 33% year over year, powered partly by AI workloads, marking its strongest quarter since 2024. That's not just growth, that's acceleration. Microsoft isn't just winning the cloud wars, they're pulling away from the competition. Microsoft isn't just providing infrastructure, they're creating technological dependence. And unlike traditional monopolies that control distribution or manufacturing, Microsoft controls the computational layer that AI runs on. But here's the most insidious part. Microsoft can see everything, every API call, every model training run, every piece of data processed through their infrastructure. They have unprecedented visibility into what their competitors are building. Imagine if Ford owned all the roads, could see where every car was going, and used that information to decide which routes to block for competitors. That's essentially what Microsoft has built with Azure. Microsoft's monopoly isn't just about big infrastructure deals, it's about capturing developers at the most fundamental level. Visual Studio Code is now the most popular code editor in the world, used by over 70% of developers. It's free, it's fast, and it's genuinely good, but it's also a Trojan horse. Every extension you install, every configuration you make, every workflow you develop in VS Code creates switching costs, but more importantly, it shapes how you think about development. GitHub Copilot integrates seamlessly with VS Code. Azure services are always just one click away. Microsoft's AI tools feel native because they control the entire development environment. And now with Copilot Plus PCs, Microsoft is embedding AI directly into the hardware. Your computer will have dedicated AI processing units that are optimized for Microsoft services. It's vertical integration from silicon to software. But here's where it gets really concerning. Microsoft is starting to influence not just what tools developers use, but how they think about programming itself. When AI can write most of your code, the developer who understands Microsoft's AI tools best has a massive advantage. We're creating a generation of developers who are fluent in Microsoft's AI language, but might struggle to code without it. That's not just market dominance, that's cognitive capture. Now, to be fair, Microsoft isn't operating in a vacuum. Google, Amazon, and Meta are all fighting back, but their responses reveal just how dominant Microsoft's position has become. Google has Bard and Gemini, but they're playing catch up in the enterprise space. Most businesses already use Office 365, so Microsoft's AI integration feels natural, while Google's feels like an add-on. Amazon has AWS Bedrock and their own AI services, but they lack the consumer touchpoints that Microsoft has. They can compete in infrastructure, but they can't compete in the daily workflow integration. Meta is focusing on open source with Llama models, which is admirable, but it's also exactly what Microsoft wants. More training data and community-developed improvements that they can eventually integrate into their proprietary systems. The problem is that Microsoft's monopoly isn't built on preventing competition, it's built on making competition irrelevant. When your AI is embedded in the tools people already use every day, competitors have to convince users to change their entire workflow, not just switch products. And here's the kicker. Every day that Microsoft's ecosystem gets more integrated, the switching costs get higher. We're rapidly approaching a point where leaving Microsoft's AI ecosystem will be like trying to leave the internet itself. Now, Microsoft would argue that everything I've described is just good business. They'd say they're innovating, providing value, and making AI accessible to everyone. They'd point out that GitHub is still free for open source projects, that Azure provides competitive pricing, that their AI tools actually make developers more productive, and they'd be right about all of that. Microsoft would also argue that they're not preventing competition. They're just competing better. Google is free to build better AI tools. Amazon can improve their developer experience. Meta can continue with open source initiatives. They'd say that vertical integration isn't monopolization, it's providing a seamless user experience. When everything works together perfectly, that's not lock-in, that's value creation. And honestly, these are compelling arguments. Microsoft has genuinely built impressive technology and provided real value to millions of users. The problem isn't that Microsoft is evil, it's that they're incredibly dangerously effective. But here's why Microsoft's AI monopoly is fundamentally different and more dangerous than previous tech monopolies. Traditional monopolies controlled resources or distribution. Standard Oil controlled oil refining. AT&T controlled phone infrastructure. Even modern tech monopolies like Google's search or Facebook's social networking control specific functions. But Microsoft is building a monopoly over cognition itself. They're not just controlling how we communicate or find information, they're controlling how we think and solve problems. When AI can write your code, draft your emails, create your presentations, and analyze your data, the company that controls that AI doesn't just have market power, they have cognitive power. And unlike previous monopolies, this one gets stronger with use. As AI becomes more powerful, our dependence on it becomes total. We're not just choosing Microsoft's products because they're convenient, we're choosing them because human-level performance increasingly requires AI assistance. Imagine trying to compete with a developer who has access to advanced AI coding tools when you don't, or trying to run a business without AI-powered analytics and automation. Microsoft isn't just selling products, they're selling cognitive augmentation. And once everyone depends on AI for basic cognitive tasks, whoever controls the AI controls everything. So what does this mean for the future? In the short term, we're likely to see even deeper integration. Microsoft will embed AI into every product they make and every service they offer. The line between human and artificial intelligence in Microsoft's ecosystem will blur until it disappears. We'll see AI that knows your work patterns, predicts your needs, and automates decisions you didn't even realize you were making. And it will all feel incredibly convenient and powerful. But in the long term, we're looking at a world where cognitive skills that took humans decades to develop can be accessed instantly through Microsoft's AI, programming, writing, analysis, creative problem solving. The question is, what happens to human expertise when AI can do everything better, faster, and cheaper? And what happens when one company controls access to that artificial expertise? We could see entire professions become dependent on Microsoft's AI tools. Lawyers using AI for legal research, doctors using AI for diagnosis, scientists using AI for hypothesis generation. And if Microsoft controls those tools, they effectively control those professions. But perhaps most concerning is what happens to innovation itself. When AI can generate solutions to most problems, the advantage goes to whoever has the best AI, not necessarily the best ideas. Microsoft's monopoly over AI tools could become a monopoly over human progress. Look, I'm not saying Microsoft is intentionally trying to control human intelligence. They're a business trying to create value and generate returns for shareholders. But the end result is the same. We're sleepwalking into a future where one company has unprecedented control over how we think, work, and solve problems. And unlike previous monopolies, this one might be impossible to break up because it's built on network effects and data advantages that compound over time. The irony is that Microsoft's AI monopoly is being built with our consent and participation. We're choosing their tools because they're genuinely useful. We're feeding their data because we get value in return. We're locked into their ecosystem because leaving would make us less productive. But maybe that's the most dangerous kind of monopoly, one that doesn't feel like oppression, but optimization. So here's my question for you. Are we witnessing the rise of the most powerful monopoly in history, or are we just seeing the natural evolution of technology toward integrated AI-powered systems? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if this video made you think differently about Microsoft's AI strategy, hit subscribe because we're going to keep diving deep into the forces shaping our technological future. Thanks for watching.